Professor Heidi Lewis, thank you so much for your time. Before we get into the interview, I just would like you to give us a brief overview of who you are, where you work, what your discipline is, and how you decided to come to Berlin.
Well, thank you for doing this interview. I'm so glad that you and I had a chance to connect. We'll talk more about that, I know, later, but so I'll tell you a little bit about me. So I'm an assistant professor of feminist and gender studies at Colorado College in Colorado Springs. And in addition to being a faculty member in what we call FGS, I'm also a core faculty member of the Race and Ethnic Studies program here. And I teach and do research in the areas of course, feminism, gender and sexuality, race and ethnicity, but more specifically critical race theory, critical whiteness studies, and I'm always doing work in the area of media and pop culture. That's really my sort of most comfortable place to do what I do. So I teach a critical media studies course. I often find myself being asked to talk to people about the media. So that's a little bit about my research and my teaching. And as far as Berlin, you know, a colleague and I were, you know, talking a couple years ago, and I told her that I was looking for conferences, academic professional conferences that were outside of the United States, because I'd done a ton of conferences here, and I still do and will still, but I wanted to expand my sort of transnational network. So I found the Society for the Multi-Ethnic Study of the, let me get this right, of Europe and the Americas. So the acronym is MESEA, even though it's Society for Multi-Ethnic Studies. And they were having a conference in Barcelona 2 years ago. So we thought, oh, you know, we should teach a class. She had never taught abroad. I had never taught abroad. And so we said we were going to teach a class here, but then we were going to whisk students off to this conference and come back. And students were just not having it because it was as expensive to go just for that couple days as it would be for them to do a whole course abroad. So after that, I went to the dean of summer sessions at the time, and I said, look, where did we go wrong? Like, what could we do to really make this go? I really want to do this. And so he talked to me, and he said, well, where do you want to go? And I said, shoot, I don't even know, like, where I don't. So then I went back, and that same conference was in Germany this past summer. And I said, Germany. Oh, my gosh, Audre Lorde, Berlin. Germany, that's it. I'm going to teach this class in Berlin because of Audre Lorde. And people do ask me that all the time, why Berlin? And people in the struggle, it's frustrating when they ask me that because it tells me that they don't know about the time Audre Lorde spent in Berlin predominantly annually for the last, 8 years of her life, and also Du Bois. So I thought, well, then that tells me that there's a need to keep those networks alive, not just for the research and the teaching, but also for the struggle. And I wanted to take students, and I wanted to share with students, like I do here, the things that I'm interested in. And so that's really why I went to Berlin. I wrote a proposal. The course was approved. I'm thankful to work at an institution that is supportive of innovation in that way. First time Feminist and Gender Studies has had a course abroad. So that was huge for me. I had 9 students. That was huge. 3 young women of color, 3 black women, 3 international students, and 3 white women. That was huge for me. So yeah, that's kind of how I ended up in Berlin. Is Audre. It all comes back to the Lord.
I wanted to ask you also a little bit. You contacted me via the BDG as a Black Diaspora and Germany Scholars Network, a Young Scholars Network, which is funded by the Deutsche Forschungsgesellschaft. And how did you find us? Were you given a tip, or did you just Google us, or how did that come about?
So that same dean who was really supportive of me said, look, there's a fund available. You apply for some money, we'll give you money to go there and connect with people, you know, look at apartments, get a feel for the area, and da-da-da-da. So I said, okay, well, how do I do that? Now, I had met Natasha Kelly, who's a scholar in Berlin, she and I had connected in Barcelona at that conference that I told you about. So, but I didn't want to sort of, you know, ask her to do the majority of the work for my class. So I got real familiar with Google in the months leading up to last November when I first came to visit. So much so that now Google automatically translates any German to English. So much so that I'll send people websites and they'll say, but it's in German. I'm like, oh, because my computer just translates it already. But I got on, and I mean, I must have had a list, and I do this with my scholarly project too. I'll come up with a long list of search terms that I think will yield the kind of material that would make sense for any project, and I did the same for this. So I had search terms like African American and German, or African American and Berlin, Black and Berlin, Black and German, Black and women, Black and feminist and German. So I just had a list of search terms, and I just started to use those search terms in Google, and that's how I came across the network. And once I found that, I thought, well, if this isn't a ready-made, you know, to meet list, I don't know what is. So it was really helpful that the network even existed for someone like me, who, you know, I had a connection there, but I didn't want to burden her with, oh, you know, help me with this, help me with that, help me with this. I'm real independent, and I don't like when people do that to me. So I wanted to take initiative and reach out, and that's how I found you. And the majority of people that I reached out to were really supportive, really helpful. And so, I mean, I have to say thanks to the BDG for even creating something like this for people like me and throughout the world, especially in Germany, to find like-minded, you know, similar and different people that are interested in the same things, because it was a lifesaver for me.
Wow, wow, that's great. That's great.